How often should they go to the boss? Should they talk to the peer first? Because they're in a new company, they're in a young career, and they're kind of learning. So I really like the idea of conversation. And sometimes perhaps our managers are more guilty of not doing it than the peers or the sort of their direct reports. But here, let's flip it. First, what should the Gen Z be thinking about that? Okay, I'm grappling with something. Uh, um, do I bother my boss enough where he gets irritated, or is it okay for me to do that? And then second could be, even as a boss, as you mentioned, Manish, the conversation, like how frequent should that be? I mean, there's probably no rule, but like, the advice of, what is common sense is not always very common, right? And so therefore, let's two parts of the question, from the leader's perspective or the manager's perspective versus the Gen Z's perspective. Any guidance on, how can they make conversations maybe somewhat routine?
Sure. So very often when I conduct workshops and I talk to people, and a lot of Gen Z people and a lot of managers who are not Gen Zs, who are just
Yeah.
one level behind them, I find that most people do not have conversations with their seniors as often as they would like. And very often the reason could be that my boss is very busy. He doesn't have time or she doesn't have time. So that is one fact that I've seen. And when I interview people and ask them how often does your boss sit down with you, theoretically on paper they're supposed to have one-on-one conversations, say once in a month. Usually, what happens is maybe once in a quarter or twice in a year. Sometimes not even once a year. You only sit down just once for the annual appraisal. That's it. So that's a stark reality of the world today. I would advise the seniors to at least have a fortnightly conversation, if not a weekly, a short 10-minute check-in session, maybe more frequently, and then maybe a longish conversation once in a month. So that is one aspect. Second aspect from a senior's perspective is you don't have to have a conversation every time. You can also, when you notice a behavior which is a praiseworthy, you can simply praise your junior. It doesn't require you to have a formal meeting. And whenever you notice something, that is the opportunity to give some constructive feedback. Do it there and then, same day or at best next day. So if you follow that practice, and a lot of times what people do is, managers in particular, they note down, and then in their formal one-on-one, they will give feedback about something that happened maybe 1 or 2 months earlier. By which time the memory of that episode is quite foggy in the minds of the junior person. So I would advise the seniors two things. One is to have a 10-minute conversation, maybe once in a week, once in a fortnight, and maybe a longer conversation once in a month. But apart from that, whenever there's an opportunity for learning or for appreciating, do have a short appreciative conversation or a short constructive conversation with your team member as soon as you notice something, same day or latest next day. So that will anyway increase the number of touch points that the two will have together. That is one. Now let's flip it to the millennial, the Gen Z. The Gen Z, of course, they should have a conversation with their senior. They should seek them out. What happens is, if the senior is perception about senior is he's always very busy or she's always very busy, then the team members will feel hesitant.
Mm.
So I would say that you have to demand a conversation. Say, I need your time because after all, you're my senior. And one of your key roles is to invest your time in me, in my growth, in my learning, in having a in guiding me, in coaching me, in having a career conversation, in clarifying my doubts, addressing my concerns. That is, you are a people manager. If you think about it, that's your main job. So how are you why should people get so caught up in day-to-day transactions and firefighting that they have no time left for the core part of their job, this people manager? So the juniors or the Gen Z should actually ask the seniors to, create a slot in the calendar, say once a week, once in a fortnight, and say, this is the time you have to allocate to me. Even if it's 10, 15 minutes, it's okay. But put it on the schedule, on the calendar as a recurring invite, and make sure you go and demand conversation. Second thing they can do is they can demand a feedback. So why should you wait for a reactive feedback to come from the senior? Why can't you go and seek proactive feedback from your senior? I said, tell me in the last week or two that you observed me, what have I done well and what could I do better? Now, so you ask this question proactively. Nasina has given some observations, shared some feedback. Then you work on it. You clarify if things are not clear. You work on it, and then you go back and say, this is what you told me. This is what I've implemented. Have you seen a change in me? What else can I do? So it becomes a way of having a regular dialogue, because you not only seek feedback, you work on it, implement it, and then you go back and apprise your senior of the change you brought in yourself and the improvements that you've seen, what they have seen, what else can you do. So it becomes a kind of a regular feature then. It's not episodic, it becomes more frequent.